Over the years, I've built lots of fiddly and complicated projects that often takes me weeks, if not months, to complete. But due to the magic of editing, you never actually get to see all the decision making, the problem solving that it takes to turn a bunch of seemingly random parts into a finished object. So in this conversational video, I thought it'd be nice to rectify that and show you how exactly all this unfolds, even with a relatively straightforward build. Just recently, I've started to catch up on some of the more simplistic projects that I've already collected all the parts for over the decades. In my last video, I remade the money bug from Battlefield, and in a similar vein to that, the topic for this video is the alien signal tracer prop that appears in a few short sequences at the start of a 1984 Doctor Who story called The Planet of Fire. In theory, there's not much to it really, as it's just a matter of converting this vintage electric razor and adding some detailing to it. But in reality, all was not as it seemed, because despite its apparent simplicity, at almost every stage of the process there was always some vexing issue that I had to surmount to bring this build to completion. So grab yourself a drink, pull up a seat and get yourself comfortable, because in this long form video you're going to be seeing every step that I take and every move that I make. But I won't be watching you, as hopefully you'll be watching me, and without skipping. Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing a small project that I should have done years ago. As you already know, it's going to be the alien signal detector from Planet of Fire. I've got a really crappy printout, as you can see here. It's going to be a really simple project, or at least I think it's going to be a very simple project. And if I'm going to be brutally honest with you, I don't actually have a plan. It's that simple. I don't really need one, at least I don't think I do. All I need to do is gut this thing, take all the internals out, modify this bit, add some stuff here and probably some detail there. Now there's a bit of a story to this one. I've had it sat under my desk since 2007. That was roughly when my daughter was born. But I actually bought it, and I know exactly when. It was September 2005, and the reason I know that is we just moved into this place, and after a long and hot and sweaty day I decided I needed to have a shave and a shower, and having done that I decided to use my electric razor. Now I don't know about you, but I was pissing about afterwards, and I held my electric razor and I sort of looked at it because I wanted to know about the charge, see how much charge was left in it, and all the little lights sort of lit up, and I went, ooh, beep beep beep, and I started pretending it was like a tracer device. And as I looked at it, I thought, hang about, isn't that what was used on, well, not that exact one, but wasn't one of these what was used for the signal tracer prop from Planet of Fire? So I went off and had a look at some screen captures that I'd had from my archive from years ago, and lo and behold, I believed it was. So this was when eBay was in its infancy, and I did a lot of purchasing between 2001 and about 2010, where I bought loads of stuff, and I actually found this, and that's where it came from. But because it's one of those simple projects, you always think, I'll do it later, I'll fiddle around with it, it's going to be so easy, I'll have it done in next to no time. And 17 years later, 19 if you include the time, when I bought the thing, it's still not done, and I really have to get all this done. But that's what we're going to do. So anyway, enough chit chat, I need to open this up. There are just two screws here and here, and there's one here, but I don't think that actually holds this together, because if it did, there'd be another screw here, and there isn't, so it must be holding something inside, probably whatever drives this thing here. So I suppose I'll have to get on and pull this thing apart. I'm quite dreading what's going to be in here. I mean, bearing in mind this is an electric razor and someone's been using this over the years, I'm fully suspecting lots of hair, and hopefully not skin cells, but we'll find out. Okay, small. Actually, I really ought to get myself a tub. I'll do that later. Yeah, so there we go. Ooh, something's happening here. Aha! Oh. Do you want to have a look? Come and have a look. Yep, that's absolutely delightful. Look at all this. Someone's fur. I don't know what that is. What the hell's that? That looks like it's broken. Okay, I think I know what that might be. That might be from this. So I need to pull apart. That's the power supply. How the hell does all the... Oh, I know. Oh, yeah, there we go. That is probably what's holding it all together. Let's have a look. Oh, that's out. And this is absolutely revolting. All this hair. So, is all this going to come... Oh, look at that. Eee. Okay. Yuck. I feel like I need to go and have a shower now. Right, so this is essentially what I need. It's just this bit. Just that bit. I'm kind of wondering whether I need to keep any of this. I mean, I would like to keep this section here, because I kind of like the fact that it flips open and no, damn, don't think I can do that. I was rather hoping that when I come to put in the electronics, I could put something in there like the battery or something, but that's completely closed off. That's... damn. Okay, well I'm going to have to rethink that. And yeah, okay, so let's just... What am I going to do now? Okay. What of this do I need to keep? Well, definitely this bit here. Oh, that just comes off. What's this? I have no idea what that is. Oh, I know what that might be. That. Yeah, that selects the voltage from 110 to 240. So American, European, I guess. So what about this bit here? See, this bit here, I think... Ugh. Let me just show you on this this photograph. I think, so this is the... hang on, yeah. So that's the way it was sitting inside it. Now this bit here is the slider, so I think I'm going to have to modify it and tip it the other way round. So I'll probably need to cut all this off, and that's where the LED is going to go, somewhere up there. So I'm going to have to build in some sort of plate. But yeah, I think there's going to be some modification needed here. Just got to think how I'm going to do it. So that's still, yeah, that's still slide up and down. So I can probably modify that to better match this. I'm fairly certain I'm going to have to just ditch this. I did want to keep some of this to try and hold it all together, but I just don't think that's going to work. The reason being is I obviously don't want this section. I mean, I'm sure I could pull it. Oh yeah, sure I could pull all that off. But it's all this stuff really, because what's going to happen is I'm going to have a circuit board in here that's going to drive the light, the LED that's on here. And I'm just worried about the room. In fact, I know damn well I can't use this. This is going to take up all the room, so... The other part is this. On the front of this prop, there is something there, and it's stripped. I kind of like the fact that this moves, but it's very obvious what this is. So what I might do is see if I can try and prise this bit out here, and of course I haven't brought anything with me that I could use to do... Oh yes I have. Where's that screwdriver? Just there, my little baby screwdriver. It seems to be held in with some sort of tab in here. Let me see if I can just prise that open. Can I do that? Come on, there we go. Boink. Ooh. Okay. Okay. Ugh, that is full of... That is kind of skin... Eee. I'm going to have to go and wash all these in a minute. Yeah, this is definitely going to need a wash. So yeah, I think what I'm going to do is glue this back into place in here. Something like that. Retain that little bit of detail. Has that gone up? Ah, there we go. In fact... Oh, right, okay, that just clicked into place. Yeah, okay, I might be able to work with that. the next thing that needs to go on would be this little detail here. Now this is actually the reason why I've not done it for so long, because you probably can't tell from this, but I'll put up a picture. This area here is basically perforated metal. I'm not going to say steel, but it's probably some sort of aluminium or something along those lines. And I have been looking for years for exactly that perforated mesh, and I couldn't find it. Now the interesting thing is, I kept coming back to it every couple of years and just searching eBay and Google for perforated mesh, and every piece that I ever had was either way too thick, you know, like 1 mil or 1.5 mil or 2 mil even, and even then the perforations themselves, the diameter of the holes were way too big. And part of the reason why I'm doing this now is because finally, after nearly 20 years, I found it, and it was in a really weird way. I was stood out here in the conservatory one day, just looking for something to do, and in the back of my head I heard this little voice say, "Look behind you, look behind you." What am I looking at? What am I looking at? Anyway, I turned around and I saw, let me just grab it, I saw this. About 8 months previous to this, we had gotten rid of this radio. This is the radio from our kitchen, and it has been sat on my workbench or near my workbench for the last, it was about 8 months at the time, so it's probably more close to 10 months now. And I looked at it and thought, hang about, the mesh on this is absolutely perfect for what I need. So what I need to do a bit later on is dismantle this this radio and harvest that, but that'll come in a while. I don't need to do it just yet. Really, I need to formulate a plan though, what I'm going to do. I need to cut that piece out, and I need to do something with this. And we never really got to see the back end of the prop, so what I'll probably end up doing is cutting something to fit here, probably some plastic, add some sort of greeblies and stuff, just make it up as I go along. I mean, it will be screen accurate from that point, just not necessarily there because I really don't know what's there, and if I don't know what's there, you certainly don't, so, unless of course you got the original prop, which I doubt you have. I mean, you might do if you have, let me know. But yeah, yeah, there doesn't seem to be much work, it's a lot of thinking, so I'm going to go away and have a bit of a think. Okay, I've been thinking about this build, and my initial conceptions as how I was going to do it, I think have changed ever so slightly. Now, do you remember I had the motor that drives everything? Well, as you can see, it's now in bits. Now, the reason I went back to that is because I really did feel that I needed the piece that actually bolts the whole lot together. So as you can see, I've just unscrewed the back. It was literally 2 screws and it came off. So that is now going to enable me to stabilise the 2 halves of the shell when they go together. However, I'm going to need to retain this little plate, and I'll need to modify that because when it sits in there, it's not at quite the right angle that I want to. So what I'm going to do is take this piece of plastic, or a piece of plastic, put it on the front there and shimmy the front up. In addition to that, I was talking about this little piece here for the front. I think I will at least try and retain it, but I am going to have to snip off this top piece here. The reason being is that the mesh that sits over the top of the front here, when it sits on the top, it actually folds back and under. So, you know, with that intact, the whole lot is in the way. So if I can remove the top piece, I can kind of fold it and tuck it under, just as it seems to be on the original prop. The only issue that I do have is it's going to be a little bit cramped in here. Now, very kindly, my friend Jared over in Australia made me this little piece here. It's actually an Arduino. We'd talked about doing it the old-fashioned way, but the way it worked out, there just wasn't enough room. So we've gone small, gone Arduino. So there's a little LED. I need to kind of curl it up on itself and put it in here. Now, earlier on, I was talking about modifying this slider. The more I look at the photograph, the more I'm convinced actually I don't think this was used at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a piece of plastic and build a new plate in there. And on that plate I'll make a little hole to receive the LED, and the LED will poke up through into it. And then possibly I may cannibalize this for parts and stick it onto this, but I won't know until I start fiddle-faffing with it. So anyway, there we are. You know, plans change as always when you're making things up as you go along. I'm trying to stay as close as I possibly can, but I'm not really going to know what my next move is until I actually do it. So all the fun of replicating props, I guess. Okay, it's been a few days since I last recorded. Now there's, I was just saying about a change of plan. Well, there's been another change of plan, and what I was about to do was make the top plate that you saw me talk about, this piece in here. Now, something's come up. It's actually the LED. I wondered why this looked too big, and I suddenly remembered, because bear in mind, this has been years since I've last looked at this project. Why was this LED too big? Let me just grab the photograph. There it is. Look at this. Now this is much bigger than the actual prop, but look, it's exactly the same size there, which means this is too big, because obviously this is larger than life. So what was the issue? Well, I just remembered. I did some phone calls yesterday. I spent most of the day on the phone. To get the correct size LED, which is a lot smaller than this, you cannot just buy them off the shelf. You can't just buy one. For me to buy them, I need to buy 5,032 of them at the price of £1,600. There's no way I'm going to be doing that. I'd forgotten all about this. So this is why, many years ago, I found this one that's close. It's a little bit too big. In fact, it's within tolerance, but not really. I would know it's not right. So anyway, these we could buy for a handful of them. I think 4 or 5 of them for about a tenner. However, we have managed to track something down, and it's now on its way. So this means that I've got to rebuild all of this. I have literally been on the phone to Jared. He's an absolute whiz on this sort of stuff. We've been talking for nearly 2 hours. So what I need to do is mothball this whole thing, because essentially I can't build any of this top surface until I have this done. So everything basically relies on the next thing going along. So yeah, I'm going to have to mothball this whole entire project until the right parts turn up, and then I'm going to modify this Arduino. I need to add in a LiPo battery with a connector on there so I can charge it from the outside, yada 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 yada. So just as you think you've got everything going, a huge curveball is thrown at you and you have to stop. So for you, it'll be moments. For me, it might be a few weeks. But again, like I said earlier, this is what happens when you're making stuff up as you go along. Plans change all the time. Problems come up. You've got to troubleshoot them. And thank God I know Jared, because he absolutely knows electronics inside out. That's my one weak point. I can just sort of bumble along, but he's the expert. He can really, really coach me, is perhaps the best way. He can coach me over the phone from Australia, and I just follow, like a moron, what he tells me. So yeah, that's where we are. I've got to wait for some bits to turn up. Oh joy. Yeah, I know I said in the last chapter that I was going to put this into mothballs while I wait for some parts to turn up. However, I really couldn't sit idle. I just needed to be doing something. So what I've decided to do is concentrate on making this front plate here. Now, don't panic, you've not missed much. All I did was I took some of this tape and I put it over the front of this and then drew around it and cut it out. And then I stuck it onto some sheet plastic, which is this 1.5mm styrene. And then I essentially cut it out. Now, as you can see, this fits nice and flush, like that. However, I can't leave it like that. What I actually need to do is find out what is the thickness of this mesh, and then subtract that from the edge all the way around here, so that that can then sit flush once it has the mesh on it. Now, the next thing that I need to do is to dismantle that radio that I showed you, I think a couple of chapters ago. So this is my old kitchen radio, and I don't need to take everything apart, but all I need really is just to undo this. I think the bottom comes off, and then it's a case of prying things apart. I don't think I'm going to bother talking you through it. It's fairly obvious what I'm doing, so let me just get on with it. Let's select a tool. Little tabs here. I wonder if I can just prise that out. Because what I don't want to do is ruin this stuff. I've waited long enough for it. So can I get this out without damaging it? I can get that out there. Maybe I should pull that back. Please don't ruin this. There we go. It's released. Now there's every chance I can pull this out now. Come on, you. There we go. Success. Now I'm seeing a little bit of rust on this. This is considerably thicker than I thought it was going to be. That is a mil, so okay. But still, it's out and it's free. I can play around with that next. Right, situation update. I've just been playing with some of this metal and it is steel. I was rather hoping it would be aluminium, but it's not. It feels like mild steel. Now, the problem is, it's cutting it. It's too thick for the tools that I've got. The very first thing I tried was this hacksaw. It's an absolute no-go. I did try this, my Dremel with a cutting wheel on there, but it's so dangerous, it's scary. Put it that way, it's very, very scary. These metal snips did work. However, the problem with these are, I can't snip carefully enough around corners. They are just so stiff. I'm sure if I had a bit more practice I could do it, but oh, the pressure I'm having to put on this. I mean, I may go back to this and have a look, but it's given me food for thought. Now, my original plan was to take this piece of plastic and then wrap this stuff around it. There is absolutely no way that's going to happen. Now, if I had a press or anything along those lines, a metal brake, I might have got away with it, but not like this. It's not going to happen. Now, the idea I've had is to, instead of trim this back, I'm going to leave it exactly as it is. Now, you can possibly just about see this. There is a small amount of give in here that I can push it really far down, and it just about touches that chassis that's in there. Now, the plan is I'm just going to cut this material to the same shape as this material and then bend it at this point here. That's the only place I think I can do it. However, that seems to sit rather nicely in here, so yeah, that's where I think I'm going. I'm not sure if I'm going to show you this because, to be honest, I need maximum concentration. This is so dangerous. I mean, just cutting this stuff with this, I think you need at least 3 or 4 pairs of underwear on standby for just in case. I have literally, in the last couple of minutes, I have missed myself a couple of times just by fractions of millimeters. It binds and then bites and then flings itself out, as well as all the sparks, which I can deal with. So I might have a couple of goes at this, one with this, but I think the first go might be just with these, but we shall see. I might even use the grinder and just sort of grind it to the right shape. Right, this is plan A. I've taken my template and I've just loosely drawn around it. So I'm going to try and cut this out, but I'm fairly convinced I'm going to be doing this rather cack-handed. However, once I've cut that out, I'm going to potentially pull this blue tape off, stick it onto here, and then, as you can see, the grinder's here, so I'm going to grind the crap out of it until it matches. So yeah, this is not going to be fun. Where do I start? This is riveting. Shall I tell you something that's really scary? if this doesn't work, then the entire project that I've spent 20 years trying to do is going to fail. And I've already spent some time working on this, so I'm not in a relaxed state, let's put it that way. Don't let my calm demeanour fool you. Currently, I'm bricking it. Metalworkers, tell me what I'm doing wrong and what tools I need. Oh, this is crucifying my hands. What do they say about suffering for your art? Bloody hell. God, doing this all by hand is bloody difficult. Painful. Well, this is a work of art. I was looking at the photograph that I had printed out, and then I looked at it again on the computer so I could actually see. It looks like the BBC people had the same problem. Because if you actually look at the thing, the surface of it undulates, so I'm guessing they must have used pretty much the same stuff I'm using here, in terms of the gauge. Right, okay. That is roughly what I want. Now I need to hone it down, so I'll be back in a minute. Right. To say my confidence is high would be a complete lie, but what I've done is I basically clamped my plastic guide to this, and now what I'm doing is hoping for the best. Eye protection on, everything on, mum on speed dial, 999 on speed dial. Here we go. God almighty. I'm just letting it kiss there because I don't want to go too far. That's why it's jumping. Okay, that's the general idea, so I'm going to keep going, I think. Oops. I have to say, that was not a trivial operation. That was very, very scary, especially with my limited tools. However, it's in. It's not completely trimmed yet. I still got to take this tab off because I need to work out where it bends exactly under here. But what I ended up doing was I roughed it down to size with these snips. I then ground it to shape. I literally crept up on the line on this grinder. And then I actually used this Dremel piece to grind and fine-tune this into position. So that's where we are. All I've got to do now is remove the blue tape from underneath, remove all that, and somehow stick this onto that. Now the way I'm going to be doing that, I think, is a few drops of super glue, but there are some plastic strips that go across it, and I think that's what their job is for, is to literally hold this metal piece to that. But I think we're already starting to look like the little tracker device. So I'm quite pleased about that. Yeah, I'm going to go and change my underwear now. Thank you very much. Right, full disclosure, it's been a couple of weeks since I last worked on this project. I'm not going to go into detail, but we've had a couple of family emergencies. One sort of resolved itself to some degree, the other is ongoing. In amongst all that, I've been waiting for some supplies to turn up. I have changed plans yet again, but again, this will become obvious a bit later on. For now, for this section of the video, I want to concentrate on the plasticky bits, the bits that I'm going to build. You've already seen me work a little bit on this faceplate. I will be coming back to that. I do need to work on this top plate, that will be soon, and also I need to work on this back plate here. Now, the original piece that comes off of here is this bit, and as you can see from here, there is no way that that is sitting here. They've clearly replaced it. So in a bit of downtime, I did a bit of research which turned into a partial build. It was just basically testing the idea. But what I've done is I've replicated the inside of this in plastic, just so I've got a lower profile. Now, it may not look like much, but there's two plates here. There's the outer plate, the back piece, and then the inner plate. That's like a locator, and that will sit just inside this little lip here, like so. And it does produce the same look as down here. I've already cut a hole in there for the on-off switch. But what I do need to do is, let me just show you, on the back here, you can probably just about make these out. There are these little tabs, one here, and one there. Now what they do is allow the thing to be pulled apart, and it locks it in without screwing the piece in. Now, because obviously this is going to be a prop and we're going to want to pull it apart, I don't want to glue this back plate here on here. The BBC possibly did that, I'm not sure, I don't have the original prop so I don't know. But if I was to glue that thing on, that means I'll never be able to get the battery out without breaking this thing off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to detail up the back here. I'm going to keep it fairly simple, just a couple of greeblies. But I do want to recreate these little tabs, these three tabs here, to lock it in. Now, let me just demonstrate that. So there they are, there's the pieces. They lock into these little pieces here, these little notches, like, and I hope if I had it the right way up, like so. Like that. So essentially the two halves of the shell keep it in situ, if I can get the damn thing together. So there we are. So it's completely locked in place. So I need to try and replicate that. Anyway, that's what we're going to do, so I'm going to crack on with some solvent weld and a couple of dabs of glue. I'm just going to put a couple of dollops on there and hopefully get this positioned nicely. I need to centre it. Get that on there. Do the same with the other side. Couple of dollops of glue. I do have a little centre line that I can follow. Yep, that looks nicely aligned. Want some detail running up this, so I'm just using some of this 1x2. I'll obviously trim it later, but I just want to see how this is going to look. And then once I've got that on, I'm going to put some across this way. I want to keep it really simple back here, because I don't want it to be too fussy and too detailed. It's just unnecessary. If you've been a long-term watcher of my channel, has it ever occurred to you how cack-handed I've got to do this just so that you can see it? See, if I wasn't filming myself, I wouldn't have to do it the way I'm doing it now. I usually have to favour the camera, so essentially I'm stretching in all sorts of weird ways to do this. So I hope you bloody well appreciate that. Right, next one. Let's get this one in. Push it in. Okay, I've pretty much gone as far as I think I should go with this. So the details are on, it's just some strips and a greebly or two here. I've deliberately kept it simple because A, we don't know what's on there. B, it doesn't need to be any more complicated than this because only the on and off switch is going on here. And to be honest, I just want it to sort of reflect what's going to be on the, the front side up here. On the back, I've put those two pieces there. I may do another one on the bottom, but let's just see if this will actually fit together. So, moment of truth. So it sits in there. And that goes over. Oh, look at that. Absolutely perfect fit. That is pretty good. So this is a bit I've been putting off the most because I just couldn't get my head around it. Well, I could. I had several different ideas as to how I was going to do it. But let me just show you. This is the section in question. I've already cut out a piece of plastic, and that wasn't as straightforward as you'd think. It's not just a rectangle. It's got all sorts of little facets on it, which is very boring, and on camera you couldn't see what I was doing, so there's no point in me showing it to you. Where I've got up to right now is I have cut out this little plastic piece, and that will be the surround that goes on later, but I cannot put this on just yet. That has to be done after it's painted and decorated. So right now I'm thinking of sticking the support structure underneath it, which is just basically these bits of plastic, and it's basically going to be a framework. However, that then leads on to this little slider control. I've looked at the original prop. There is absolutely no way they use the original slider from the RAZR. That's a given. There's no detail in here whatsoever, and that leads me to believe that that piece there is just stuck on. It clearly doesn't move in the entirety of the episode in the few scenes it's in. However, I can't shift the idea that I want it to move. Now, I've gone through loads of different ways of doing it, and because of room, most of them can't be done, apart from one. And you'll see how I do it a bit later on probably, but I'm going to do it with a magnet. I'm going to cut a little piece of metal, which is here. I've cut a little piece of metal, and that will actually sit underneath this, and then under the switch will be a tiny little magnet, which there are some here. So that's what I'm basically working towards. That's the idea. So I should be having the weekend off, but no, I'm sat here doing this, so that's what I'm going to be doing. So this essentially is just a support for the upper framework. I'm literally making a little box. I've got to do it this way round, purely because of the ergonomics of this piece here. So I'm essentially making it to fit. If what I'm about to do doesn't work, this will just be an extra layer of detail. But the idea is to have that sitting in there and to look like part of the slider switch. So I just need to trim this down slightly by sanding it. It's just catching up by little bits. It's better to cut proud and then sand your work down. Still got a bit of a way to go, probably 1/4 of a millimetre, but that's enough to jam everything up. Now I'm wondering if I'm going to regret doing this, because once I do this I can't go back. Well, we're committed now, more or less. I tell you, if this goes wrong, I really do not want to build the whole thing again. Right, will that fit on first go? Of course not. Why would it fit on the first go? Just a little tight. There we go. Well, having done all that, I've now realised that the idea I was going to do isn't going to work, and the reason for that is I didn't notice kind of an important detail. I suspected it but wasn't sure. I've got my framework in, and I've got my two separators which are here and here, and there would have been a slider switch built over the top of it with a slider runner that goes in along here. Now I've noticed a bit of a problem that I suspected might be there, but it wasn't obvious until I actually did this, and that is that from here to here is narrower than it is from here to here, so the whole thing's sort of wedged. And that might cause a little bit of a problem. Not too much of a problem, but if I was going to put in my little slider on here, there's every possibility that the runner will have a bit of slop and will just potentially fall out. But I think I'll just keep going and hope for the best. That's generally the way these things work, and if all things come to the worst, I'll just glue the damn thing in. I've gone as far as I can go with this top plate with the little slider switch. Look, it actually works. I'm really pleased. Look, it even stays in position. So the big secret to that is a piece of metal on the back, and on the underside of this is a magnet that holds it in place. So yeah, that worked a lot better than I'd imagined. So yeah, so all I've got to do now is move on to the next detail. Okay, on the homeward stretch now, I'm working on the front plate. Now, do you remember I was going to use this metal plate and I was going to angle it and glue it and wedge it into position to get the correct angle that matches the front here? I'm not bothering with that, so instead, a few weeks ago, before I sort of down tools for my little paws, I built this plate. Now what I'm going to do is have these little plastic wedges that will sit underneath, and then my plate will sit on top. I think I've got it as close as I possibly can get it, but I know what I'm going to have to do now is just literally glue these to this board and then trig it up afterwards. And by trig it up, I just mean sort of refine it. It's just easier if I do it whilst it's in position. I may live to regret that, but let's get on with it. Right, just testing the fit here. I can already see it's a little bit too high on this side. Yeah. Okay. Actually, if I was to push that down a bit. No, I think what I may do is just bring it down a little bit. That looks good. Yep, I'm going to leave it at that. These magnets are currently seated with a pressure fit, but just to be on the safe side, I am going to put a bit of Loctite on, so brand new bottle. Just add in a few dollops if it would deign to come out. There we go. Be a little bit on the generous side. Right, there's no turning back now. I'm about to glue my upper chassis, the white piece, to the main chassis, which is the black piece. I'm going to just do it with some CA glue, the same as before. Just going to put in a couple little drops. I wouldn't say this is a permanent fix, purely because I can snap the stuff off, if needs be. I just want to tack it in there. Now, in case you're wondering, I have to glue this upper piece to this lower piece, and then once that's in place, I can then glue in this part. But obviously I can't glue that in if I've already glued that in, so that's why I'm doing it this way around. So that looks like that looks like it's in nice and snugly. So here we go. It's only going to affix down these two straights here. And I've got to apply pressure when I do this. So I'm not going to subject you to all that. You don't want to see me getting all worried. So there we are, it's on. Yep, I'm going to sit here for the next 5 or 10 minutes just holding this with pressure. Just modifying the front array here. Hot! Hot molten plastic! Yeah, I'm a bit nervous about this next bit. I've got to bend this piece here at about that line there, and then work out where exactly I have to trim it, so it's a bit of toing and froing. How am I going to do that? With great trepidation. Let's see if this is going to work. No, that may not work. Let's try this. Is it actually... No, that's not bending where I want it to. It's moved. Bugger! I bent it in the wrong place. Can I bend it back? Now, if only I had a metal brake, I'd be able to do this properly. This is the most cack-handed way of doing it. Okay, that's better than it was. So we're just going to try again. Can any of you see where... Oh, there it is. Don't worry, I found it. If I seem extraordinarily trepidatious, that's because I am extraordinarily trepidatious. I have one of these, so that means I've only got one chance to get this right. So... don't want to do it. Make sure my alignment is correct. Well, that had better be correct. I almost don't want to put this thing back together. Oh my goodness me. That is pretty much perfect. I might just have to push this little end here in, but that, God almighty, that worked really well. Couldn't have hoped for better. Jesus Christ, I'm going to have to go and have a lay down. Look, I don't know how much it showed, but what you've just seen me do, I was absolutely crapping myself because I only had one shot at this. I don't have the budget to keep going over and over and over and redoing it, but I had the one piece, I bent it, and it fit way better than I had imagined. The cut is perfectly smooth, exactly where I want it, so all I have to do now is decorate up the front, and by decorate it, I'm just going to put some strips, 3 of them. I think there's 5 on here. Then I have to go and do some painting. But I genuinely am and was scared. Right now I'm on the come down after the hype. But yeah, very, very, very scary when it's a one-off. That's a primer for the super glue, or the CA glue. Now I'm going to go very quiet. Now the issue with the black plastic that you can see me attaching this to is that nothing really sticks to it. It's possibly a polypropylene, or it might be polyethylene, and they are notorious for not wanting glue to stick to it. So that's why you saw me put that primer on just a moment ago. Hopefully this is going to work. Looks like it might do. Go on to the next one. Everything's masked up, and this is all the primer I've got left, so hopefully I've got enough. But wish me luck. Well, for the purposes of this video, the project is now pretty much completed. I do have a couple of small things left to do, but they're not worth showing you. However, we have all the electronics in. Now, that was a pain in the backside, I do have to admit. So here was the original plan, and by original plan, I mean this went through various permutations. It's all based on a nano board from Arduino. LEDs connected up to it with a little switch to drive the thing. Then you have a variable resistor to change the speed of it, and then originally we were going to have a LiPo battery that you could charge. So unfortunately, given the space, I already knew pretty much after Jared had very kindly put everything together for me that it wasn't going to fit. There's just not enough room. So when it arrived, I had to strip everything that he'd made for me and basically start afresh based on what we'd already talked about. So some small adjustments, but come and have a look. Hopefully you can appreciate just how tight it is in here. Now the reason why you haven't seen me put it together is because Ordinarily, I would have soldered all these parts together outside of this shell and then transposed it and put it in and got on with it. It was just not a possibility. I had to literally assemble all this and solder it all together in situ, so that's why you didn't get to see it, because essentially with my hands being in the way you wouldn't have been able to see a damn thing. So just to sort of explain it, so here's our nano, that's what's driving everything. Our little bar graph LED here, and just here I built a little housing for a switch, so there is a switch underneath that. There's the on-off switch here. Now this powers that, and then this switch here breaks the ground, I think it is, and activates the LEDs. So this thing is constantly cycling, but you can only see the LEDs once this button here is depressed. Speaking of depressed, got it all together, the whole thing worked beautifully first time. I then switched it off, went to pick my kids up from school, came back, and switched it on over here. Not a damn thing, nothing was working. So I had to do a little bit of troubleshooting. Clearly, it seemed to me that the power wasn't reaching here. So the first thing I did was check the battery. Was the battery dead? No, it wasn't. I stuck it on my tongue and got a lovely electric shock. Next thing was check all the wiring. Was all the wiring absolutely perfect? Yes, it was. I even checked it under a magnifying glass. Then I decided to check the LED. I took a 3-volt battery and just powered it individually. It lit up. So the only thing it could have been was this switch here, and it turned out that it was that switch. In fact, not this one. It was this one. This is the original switch. There was something dodgy about this particular switch. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. So I had to think, oh, okay, then unsolder it and swap it over with a new one, and now it works perfectly. So all I've got left to do is to put it back together again, do a little bit of weathering, which I'm not going to show you because it's just weathering and it's very minor. Stick the top plate on, and then you'll get to see it. And in fact, you'll get to see it next. Well, my friends, that concludes the build, and I have to say that for once, I'm actually really rather happy with the outcome, despite the fact it took me almost 2 decades to get around to. All in all, given the limited photographic references of the original prop, I'm pretty satisfied with the accuracy here. I'd say it's about 98% correct, as there was just no way to tell what was going on with the rear side, but I can live with that because everything else looks just as it did on screen. One thing that I will say about the accuracy aspect is that I'm really glad that I put a pause on the build to obtain the correctly sized LED array. Even though it gave me a lot of grief, you would not believe what we had to go through to get it. I more or less had to sign away my entire life, and I'm fairly certain that my name's now on a government watch list somewhere. But it was worth it in the end, because had I settled for the original one that I bought as a substitute, it just would have bugged me immeasurably, as I knew it was too big, and that really would have caused me to be deeply unhappy with the final result. Pretty much to the point that I would more than likely just abandon the entire project. I can be that picky. Speaking of the LED, my thanks must go to Jared for programming the Arduino board and guiding me through it all. The animated LED display really does make this little prop pop and sing, so he has my deepest gratitude. And with all that, this is another project that I can finally tick off of my massive list of things to do. And with luck, this may even be the start of me ploughing my way through the rest of the builds that are all waiting in potentia. Who knows? Look, I know this video has been quite long, but I really do hope that it's illustrated that even the simplest of projects can be fraught with problems to overcome and solve, because I do fear that in a lot of my videos and other makers' videos as well, that we kind of give the impression that we just whip this kind of thing out of our arseholes with little to no effort. And that just isn't so. It's far from it, in fact. So if you're working on your own project yourself and it's giving you some strife, then don't fear. You're not alone, it happens to everyone, you're not doing anything wrong, it's all just part and parcel of the process. And on that bombshell, it's time to bid you all farewell, so stay safe, thanks for watching, and I'll see you again in the next video. Take care now.